Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to Niche Marketing 101 for this first Wednesday. I'm Melissa from the Business Insight Center at the Central Library of Rochester and Monroe County. Thank you so much for joining us today. Please remember to mute your microphones and enter any questions into the chat. We'll be answering questions at the end of the presentation. This presentation is being recorded and will be uploaded to YouTube. And if you have registered for the event, you will receive an email with the presentation slides. Just a reminder that all services of the Business Insight Center and Carlson Center for Intellectual Property are free and available by appointment only. I would like to introduce you to Chloe Anderson from the SBDC.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to First Business Wednesdays. I apologize. And I'm going to introduce to you today's speaker. Today, we are blessed to have Dr. Lomax Campbell, and he brings 2 decades of experience in small business, higher education, government administration, and civic engagement. He's an expert in encompasses strategy, general management, marketing, organizational development, and some of his accomplishments include raising and assisting in the development of more than $30 million in grants to support community-based workforce and economic initiatives in Rochester, New York. He has also overseen $3 million entrepreneur ecosystems and building and enhancing programs for the state of Massachusetts. He has raised $10 million in rapid recovery planning program. He's an anti-racist management scholar practitioner. He is the founding president and chief executive officer of the Third Eye Network, an innovative multicultural marketing and management strategy consortium serving a diverse multi-sector clientele. And he also is the founding chairman of the board of Niche Marketing Insight Foundation, a 501c3 not-for-profit. He maintains an active international network, and he has education and a bachelor's degree in graphic media marketing and in Chinese language and culture. He has a master's in business administration from Rochester Institute of Technology. He's earned his doctorate management degree from the University of Maryland Global Campus, where his dissertation explored the strategic importance of cultural fit between organizations and niche marketing segments in the 21st century. In his personal time, he's an arts and cultural enthusiast. He enjoys traveling, dancing, cooking, music, and going to the theater. He also enjoys reading, billiards, golf, non-competitive shooting, and hosting family and friends, comedic yoga, and exercising. So today I want you all to help me in welcoming Dr. Campbell. He's going to be coaching on how to market to a niche culture. Welcome, Dr. Campbell, to today's Business First Wednesday.
Chloe, thank you so much for that extensive introduction. I think no one's going to remember any of it other than that brother came on and he was casket sharp. But I appreciate you all for taking the time to indulge us this morning, and hopefully for the family over in Austin and for the family here in the New York region, hopefully this will be time well spent. I also encourage you all to network in the chat, put your name, your business, for those of you who are business owners, and maybe your website, social media links, so that you all can find each other. Folks, feel free to save the link to the chat in the end of the meeting, because the truth is we should always be working on our business, right? Not just in it. So we should always be building contacts and leveraging this information to support what we're doing. So thank you again. I do have a presentation as labeled by today's event, Niche Marketing 101, Do It for the Culture. It's about 20 slides, but then we're going to jump off the slide death by PowerPoint experience. And then I'll probably also pull up my company's LinkedIn page and how we're doing it for the culture, and another website. Is that okay? All right. So let's get into it. Can everybody see my screen here? Fantastic. So again, my name is Dr. Lomax Raheem Campbell. That's what my mama named me. I added the doctor later. You can call me Dr. Campbell. You can call me Brother Campbell. You can call me Lomax. I don't believe in hierarchies unless, we're trying to break them down. All right. So on the agenda front, you'll get a little bit of my background in a more concise format. For those who are visual learners, you'll be able to see it because that was a lot. And I appreciate Chloe for generously reading a combination of my bio, my LinkedIn profile, my Facebook page, my superlatives from high school, and all of those things. But then we're going to talk about marketing as a process, and we'll dive into market segmentation as a part of that process. And then we'll look at what does that look like when you get into it, and then we'll come to niche marketing. So we're doing one of those reverse funnels. And then we'll talk a little bit about creating touch points and pricing strategies and measuring performance, just as a way to just show you a little bit more of that process. And then we'll dive into what that looks like, particularly when you're serving the Black or African American or Pan-African market segment, as a way, since this is Black Heritage Month, which my history is 365 days a year. We're creating it right now. So here's a group photo of the Third Eye Network's team. Those who made it to this particular retreat and photo shoot back in 2022. Last year was in Dallas. This year will be in Kansas City. But I just want to be clear, Third Eye Network is not me. It's me plus these amazing humans across the country that do all types of things. But a little bit about myself. I'm born and raised Rochester, New York. Parcells Avenue are the streets that shaped me. The city of Rochester gave me opportunity to build a variety of experiences that has led to an amazing career across the public sector, the higher ed community college sector, the small business sector, and having sat on board since I was 13, as far back as 1996, I would also say the nonprofit sector. Four degrees and maybe about 5 professional certifications have really allowed me to wrestle with this concept of niche marketing or focused market strategies. My company is a multicultural marketing and management strategy firm. What that means is we're a consulting firm. Some folks have likened us to a baby Deloitte, or FSG, or the McKinsey of the 21st century. We're building our firm. We believe in striving to create culturally congruent communities across the United States. And so that's our vision, and we'll talk a little bit about culture and cultural congruence. And then also, to do that, we do things with community, not for community. So collaboration is important to us. And we tend to solve major challenges that are persistent in organizational life across sectors, whether it's the public sector, the private sector, whether it's the philanthropic sector. We work with the financial sector. We work with K-12 and higher education. And so truly, we can't solve these problems that are persistent without being creative, working with the community. And so those are our core values, because if we did the same thing we've always done, we get the same results. And we all know that that's the definition of insanity. Our work is about change, social transformation. And it takes energy. It takes relationship. It takes dreaming together, right? The beautiful thing about youth is that we're encouraged to dream. We're encouraged to explore. And as we become adults through the process of adulting and socialization, our dreams are stolen from us. And so literally, the secret and key to the work that we do is returning back to childhood and never letting someone steal your dreams. And so it requires us to take a posture of continuous improvement, striving to get better. And I have 1 or 2 more slides about my firm and background to give you context for my work in this presentation. Our work sits at the center of a variety of different types of development. And so because we've been pulled in these different ways and shapes and forms, and oftentimes folks are trying to do workforce development with Black and Brown community, or economic development for women and minority-owned business, or community development with the LGBTQ population, or organizational development in organizations led by disabled veterans, et cetera. I may be actually a little qualified to talk about this thing. We're a geographically distributed network, so we actually have strategic partners and clients and subcontractors as far as Dallas, Fort Worth area, the Midwest, and even work with some clients in Stockton and California. And I'll skip some of our advantages, but this is what some of our work looks like. Equity plans for recovery, economic recovery, strategic plans for non-collective impact groups, discovery and disparity studies for municipalities, digital platforms like Nexus I-90 in Rochester, or WNYB in Business in Buffalo. And then lastly, we've worked across about 15 or 16 states since September 2020. And that's been about 48 to 50 different communities that we've worked with. So now let's talk about management and marketing management as a process. So once upon a time ago, I was enrolled in the executive MBA program at RIT in the Saunders College of Business. And Bob Boehner taught this class that kind of gave this presentation on marketing as a process. And I never forgot that. So what you're about to get right now is somewhat of a master class on marketing management. And essentially, marketing goes through phases. The first two phases really have to do with the development of that strategy. The third and fourth phases has to do with the execution of that strategy. And the way I like to describe phase one is it's really about doing your homework. And there's a number of different approaches to doing your homework on your market. You know, Michael Porter in the 1980s gave us the concept of marketing, a strategy, actually. We also got Porter's 5 forces, where he said there's 5 forces that determines how attractive a market is. And those market forces shape everything, right? He talked about competitive intensity as one of the 5 forces. He talked about the bargaining power of customers, meaning that, you know, if your customers have all the control, you increase your price by 5%, they're not going to be your customer. He also talks about the bargaining power of suppliers. So if you only have one place to go to get your supplies and we have a shutdown, or they experience a fire, or they decide to raise their price, you're at their mercy. So he talks about that shapes the attractiveness of a market. He also talked about the availability of substitutes. So yeah, I don't have to buy your service as a food business. I can cook for myself. You know, I can go to a fast food restaurant. You know, maybe we'll do smoothies. So, you know, availability of substitutes. And then he also talks about barriers to entry. So those are some of the things that you can assess, but you can also assess the different factors. Some people call that a pesto analysis. We're not going to go deep. I'm just touching it to introduce this framework. Pesto looks at the political, the economic, the sociocultural, the technological, the legal or regulatory, and then the last E in pesto is the environmental factors that also impacts an industry, impacts your business, impacts what you can offer, how you offer it. And your ability to do that market research, that homework, that due diligence is often the basis for a solid plan. It's the basis for going to a funder like the Rochester Economic Development Corporation in Rochester and saying, we need $250,000 for this capital expansion project or for working capital and equipment purchases. We're going to want to know that you've done your due diligence. That's important. And so that's that first phase. And it's from this phase of the work, phase one, that you begin to see where are the gaps? Where are their vulnerabilities? Where are their opportunities for me to make a ton of money? Maybe for me to have a significant impact or do both, right? It's not mutually exclusive. You can do good and do well. But it's from that homework, right, that allows you to say, now let's move into phase two and start figuring out who our customer is. Now, I know all of you think that you have the most amazing invention, the most amazing service or product since sliced bread, since the internet, since cannabis became legal in New York State, right? But the reality of it is no one product, no one service, no one resource, no one offering, right? And there's only really 5 things you can offer, right? Goods, services, product services, resources, time, and space, right? You can say this is the space when you want to unplug from other things in life. You can come here and just chill for a while. You can rent time, you know, at the incubator, the co-working space. You can rent time at the float center and just kind of relax, right? So there's only a few things you can sell, a few different categories of things you can sell, but everyone's not a customer. We often like to think that, you know, my cereal is so good, it's healthy, it's high in fiber, I'm making this up, that everybody's going to be my customer. But something as mundane as toothpaste is so segmented, is so fragmented. You got folks who need whitening toothpaste. You have folks that have sensitive gums. You have folks that need gum health. You have folks that don't want any of that stuff. They're just give me some baking soda and some water and a toothbrush. You have folks that use chew sticks. You have folks that need whitening strips. You have folks that, you get what I'm saying. And so we have to get out of our own way and thinking that because we're proud and excited about what we have to offer and we think is different, that everyone's our customer, which is the basis of this conversation. Sometimes we need to focus. And phase two allows you to say out of all possible customers, all possible categories, maybe there's 5 or 6, 1 or 2 of them is really where we shine. That's where we're going to have the biggest impact. That's where we're going to get the greatest margin. And so you ultimately put out a high-level marketing strategy statement. Most of you can probably know some companies by their slogans or their statements. If I said everyday low pricing, some of you may put in the chat or come off mute and tell me what company that is. Everyday low pricing. Anybody?
Walmart.
Walmart. What if I said you can have it your way?
Burger King.
Burger King. So those are positioning strategies. Those are high-level strategies because basically when they say everyday low pricing, that means they've taken a mass market strategy where they've bought so many of a certain good or resource where they have economies of scale, where they get it on pennies to the dollar so they can afford to pass that savings on to you. That's a high-level strategy statement. You can have it your way means I'm going to customize the heck out of this order so that you are truly at the center of this meal that you're about to partake in, which should cost more, right? And we can go on and kind of riff off of that. But then when you get into phase 3, this is where you make choices. And I'm telling you today, strategy is about choices. You can't do everything. Most of you don't have a $500,000 marketing budget. The brother here I'm looking at right now, Chris, is saying, what's a marketing budget? Chris Resty, you saying, what's a marketing budget? Because most people don't have one. We just buy what we need when we can afford to get it, or we bootstrap. And so some of the choices we make about what to offer, products, services, resources, and I'm going to distinguish those for you because a resource could be if you had a computer lab that folks can come and use and become a member of your business center or whatever, that computer and that printer that they can subscribe to, you're not providing a service, you're providing a resource. And it's not a product because they don't walk away with it. You all get the gist. Place, where do these folks hang out? Where can you get their attention? Is it iHeartRadio? Do you advertise on, IG or whatever the kids are using today, TikTok, Friendster, it's all over the place, right? Do you have to go to the galas and the festivals in your community to reach your customer? How do you promote it? How do you get the word out there? How do you raise awareness? That's phase 3. And ultimately, how do you show up consistently to where they say, these are the company's promises made and promises kept? That's phase 3. And that's what most of you think of when you think of marketing. You think of advertising. You think of, I'm going to put these two together and offer 5% off because we've bundled it. And we're going to show up at this and pop up at the public market, or we're going to do an activation over at the, the bookstore, wherever. But marketing is all 4 of these phases. And that phase 4 is really about how you get it out there and how you measure whether or not it's working. So now that we have this high-level background, the first 2 phases is building the strategy. The second 2 phases are executing that strategy. I think we're ready to go a little further. So segmentation. It refers to different ways that we can categorize our customers into markets. And this is not all of them, but these are the primary ones. Psychographically speaking, folk would be like, folks who think of themselves as laid back, folks who think of themselves as progressive, people who identify as millennial, right? So generational clustering, psychological clustering of customers into segments. Behavioral, if you like to ski, if you like to go off-roading, if you're a Jeeper, I'm a Jeeper. I have a Jeep Gladiator and it's yellow and it's loud and I love it because I'm African and I like bright colors. Demographic, could be Black, it could be Asian, it could be Latin, it could be not just that, it can go beyond race and ethnicity into things like ability status. So it could be, we're serving the disabled population. Some people try to use terms like differently able, but some folks say that means you're invisibilizing that portions of that community. Other demographics could be literally genderedness. It could be some interesting demographics. It could be generational. And then geographic is obvious: urban, suburban, northeast, northwest, southeast, southwest, etc. So literally the ways that you can group your customers to say, when you look at them this way, they have these specific challenges. They have these specific aspirations. They have this specific heritage. And I'm going to lean into that. I'm going to build my marketing strategy around that, and then we're going to execute. And it's important because I talk about culture as the basis of segmentation in my dissertation research and in my practice, right, as a management consultant. Edgar Schein, the foremost thinker on organizational culture and change, he put out his first book, or his first paper around 79. He put out his book around 83, and he's been revising it ever since. In fact, I keep a copy of it on my desk. I'll stop sharing my screen for 2 seconds just to lift that up. Here's an old version of that. Let's see if I can pin myself for 2 seconds. Here's an old version of that book, the fourth edition, and it's about that thick, you know. This was one of my textbooks when I was doing my doctoral work, but the fifth edition is pretty interesting. But culture as the basis of segmentation. Let's go back in. So he described culture as the pattern of basic assumptions that a given group has invented, discovered, or developed as it basically struggles to adapt to the world around itself and with what's going on among itself, right? External adaptation and internal integration. If internally you're a 3-person company and 2 of you are partners, 1 of you is an employee, and you all are geographically dispersed, that's your internal situation. Maybe you're using Google Workspace. Maybe you have 2 social media platforms. Maybe you've done 3 or 4 projects together, and that's your whole system of performance or evidence of performance. And right now we've come off of COVID, and so folks are accustomed to things like Zoom. And so you're using these kinds of tools as well as being able to physically go to the location to meet your customer, shake their hand, give them a hug, and smell the air, eat the food, and get familiar with the context. You're trying to make sense of both what you got to offer and what you've already produced and the world around you in order to win. And that becomes the group's culture. That becomes your organizational culture. And those assumptions become stable enough to say, this is how we're going to train up our 4th person when they join the team. Here are our onboarding documents. Here are our proposal response materials. This is how we go about scoping a project, right? This is how we run our process to do event planning or whatever it is you do. But it's psychological. And also Schein would say that culture is not owned by the owner. It is not owned by one person. Culture is the property of the entire group. And when you understand that, you understand why some groups fit well for some people and some don't. But then in other research, Terry Cross and their colleagues back in 1988 initially, and then they published this paper in 89. And then eventually we went on to understand these things differently, and DEI came off of this work. But cultural competence, they describe as a set of congruent behaviors, attitudes, and policies, and they were specifically talking healthcare at the time, that said that these things come together in a system, agency, or among an occupation of professionals that allows either that system, that agency / organization, or the folks that work within that profession to be effective in cross-cultural situations. It's important to understand these terms. So basically, you know, when you think about culture, think of this as the collective psychology of the group. And think about cultural competence is the ability of that group to meet the needs of different kinds of people based on how they may cluster, how they may segment, just in layman's terms. And Schein looked at this, and later his colleagues looked at this as levels to this. There's levels to culture. In the DE&I space, or back in the 90s when we were talking about multiculturalism, before diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, and culture of access, before those terms became today's alphabet soup for these concepts, we were already talking about levels to this. And so oftentimes we only touch the topmost levels, like artifacts, things that you can see, hear, smell, touch, or taste, right? Or intuit with the senses and the behaviors that go along with them. But we already know that artifacts are the tip of the iceberg, right? Culture is deeper than that. It's more entrenched. We've already said it's the psychographics, it's the collective psychology of the group. It's as Kendrick Lamar said, it's in our DNA, right? And so the next level down are the things we espouse, the things that we put out there. It's how we purport to show up. And oftentimes that manifests as our strategies, our goals, our vision, our organizational philosophies, and these things are visible. But to the brothers and sisters in the room, we know what it looks like when an organization purports a set of things, but does another. And it's because there's conflict between these levels that are observable or visible and these levels that are unobservable or invisible, which is those taken for granted beliefs about what works and how to do it. When we don't hold space for the niche markets that we're serving or employing, they don't stick around. And so cultural congruence becomes very important to the success of organizations and systems, whether you're a small business, a government agency, a nonprofit, a major corporation, or a network of organizations and agencies serving community. It's important to understand this. And when your business, now I'm talking to my private sector folks, when your business says, I'm going to actually focus on my customers, there are a number of benefits just as displayed here by this graphic. I'll bring you to number 8, customer retention. Customer retention happens because they say, you know what? They're giving me exactly what I need and maybe a little more. They're even giving me things I didn't ask them for. So they really get me. When you get to that point, your customers become loyal. Or as we would say back in school or the academy when I was working there, you would develop a cult-like following. I mentioned that I drive a Jeep. It's not to brag. I mean, it could have been a BMW. I'm going to pin myself for a second because there's some things that Jeepers do. I wish I'd have bought a duck in. I don't think I have a duck in here. But if I had a duck in here, I would hold it up and I'd show you that that duck is, you know, a sacred thing to Jeep drivers. Anybody in here drive a Jeep? Put your hand up, put something in the chat. But ducking, Jeep ducking, is one of those cult-like things that Jeep owners do as a way to say, I like your vehicle. And it started maybe about 4 or 5 years ago when folks were getting together in Jeep rallies because they go off-roading together, they drive across the country, they race on sand, they go through trails. And we also have a special wave. Something as simple, you know, you see a Jeep, I forgot about this. By the way, another cult-like following, Apple products. For any of you who are on the Mac right now, you know, I have a special place for all of you, right? Because we have things that are really cool that we have available to us. And so as Apple users, we get to enjoy things that are made specifically for us. And so I know for those who use Droids, they may not like it, but it's important to understand this is what it looks like when you have a niche market that you're marketing to, right? There's a degree of exclusivity and belonging, and I identify with you and you identify with me. I think you all get it. And so what that looks like when you start putting that segmentation strategy in action, you start thinking about ways that you can really dive in qualitatively and quantitatively to understand your customer. It's a relationship. You want to personalize that experience. You want to build the journey so that it's easy for them to go from where they are to where you're at. And a market is simply where buyers and sellers meet. So you want to curate that experience so you can keep winning on purpose and authentically engage them. It's going to shape your entire business model where you align your technologies and processes and supports to support that experience. You're going to look for leaders that are authentically of that culture. and authentically can connect with that culture. I don't have to be, you don't have to be Black. I mean, I am Black. I've been Black for 40 years, but you don't have to be Black to have an authentic relationship with me, right? We may have hip hop culture in common together. We may have practiced or studied capoeira together. We may have grown up in urban environments together. We may have gone to school together and struggled through a capstone project together. We may be in the same fraternity, which may be multicultural, right? And so there are many ways to begin to now create that experience for your customer market. And it's important to be intentional about that. We don't haphazardly demonstrate success with our customers. And if we did, we don't keep them for long. So now let's take that segmentation concept, right? Women, retirees, LGBT, veteran, people of African descent. And now let's go another level deeper. A niche market is a subset of a larger segment. And so if we're talking about, because this is Black History Month, and again, my history is 365 days a year, if we're talking about serving Black people, we know that Black people are not a monolithic cultural group. We are probably perhaps one of the most diverse populations on the planet, because just in Africa alone, I believe there's over 200 languages spoken. And these are all African languages. We know that a Haitian brother or sister is not exactly the same as a Bayesian brother or sister, and that a Jamaican born in Brooklyn is not the same as an African American from Phoenix, Arizona. We're not the same. However, we do cluster. There are things that we have in common. There are things that unite us. And so you may say, this subset of a segment have very specific needs. So I think about here in Rochester, our Pan-African community that participate in Kwanzaa events, that actually celebrated Juneteenth before President Biden made that a national holiday. Folks who knows what I mean when I say Ubuntu or Ma'afa, right? Or people who actually celebrate Malcolm X Day or Marcus Garvey Day, right? That's a very niche population. However, when my wife and I ran a company called Ballet Africana Dance Preparatory Academy, one of the ways we appealed to this niche market was with culturally inspired wrapping paper. We had gift wrap paper that I designed with the Nguzo Saba and Adinkra symbols on them, specifically because we knew that that market did not have that. They needed that special attention. So niche marketing or niche marketing is that art and science of identifying and meeting the needs of hyper-focused customer segments. After Trayvon Martin was killed, a lot of Black people fled to social media and said, you know what? They keep abusing us. You know, whoever they are, I'm talking about law enforcement right now, everyone abuses Black people and don't put a value in our labor. We're not going to go there. But literally, they fled to social media and said, we're going to hit them where it hurts. Help me find a Black grocery store. Help me find a Black contractor to rebuild my home or remodel my bathroom. Help me find a place that I can go to get a headshot done, but I only want to work with a Black photographer, right? Preferably a female, right? So we saw this happen, and me and some of my fraternity brothers said, how do we capitalize on this in a way that's stable and it's not just responding to the trauma? And so we ultimately ended up creating a platform called Black Owned Business Rochester. Just as a public service, we wanted to create this website to put all Black owned businesses, Black operated organizations, and Black oriented associations in one central place, because we recognized there were facets of our population that was trying to find us. And they would never see that Facebook post again. They would never find that IG or Twitter or now X post or list again. And over time, from 2012 until now, that platform has amassed over 700 listings organically. No marketing budget, just word of mouth. Just every time, a Black person was choked out or shot, the media wanted to interview us. People wanted to get their businesses listed. Folks was telling us that listing's old, take it down, they've closed. and we just, just organically grew this thing. And I'll show you that site just so you can get the look and feel or the aesthetic. Once you know your market and you segmented your market, it's important to create those touch points. Now we're in that phase 3. So for example, you may use events online or in person to engage with that niche market or that niche market. You may create certain collateral. When I originally created this list, it was about doing procurement work, selling to government, big business, organizations that had e-procurement portals, for example. But you want to create these touch points that would allow you to get in front of them and so that you can articulate your value proposition. And so here's another example of touch points for contracting. I'm a contractor. So here's my MBE certification. Here's an example of a capability statement on the right. And when I started trying to go after bids with states like the state of Massachusetts, one of the things that I experienced in the procurement process was they were asking for, do you have an environmental sustainability policy? Do you have a diversity, equity, and diversity, equity, and inclusion process or policy? Do you have diverse workforce utilization or procurement goals working with MNWBEs or DBEs or SDVOBs? And for those that may not know those terms, that's women and minority-owned business, that's disadvantaged business enterprise, and that's also service-disabled veteran-owned business enterprise. These are federal and state designations where folks set aside funding for contracting at the government level or big business, where they're required to do business with those who are otherwise left out from those contracting opportunities. And you have to figure out for your niche market how best to price your goods and services. There are about 25 different ways to approach pricing. I'm just kind of featuring the most popular 8. When you know your market, you know that you have to use a couple of these, right? Ketchup and mustard typically is bundled together. Salt and pepper is as well. If you're in the construction space or manufacturing, you may use activity-based pricing or costing, or you may use cost plus. If you're in the food business, you may use a markup that's based on market-based pricing. Or if you got high-end products, you may use premium pricing strategies. But you need to know your customer, right? I tell you, for Black folks, if you give me a low price right now, you try to raise it too much later, I'm gonna cut you out. I'm just being candid. And so you really want to understand your customer. I normally tell people, especially our micro enterprises, companies with fewer than 10 employees or no employees, solopreneurs, it's good to get 3 to 5 of your different competitors' prices. Take an average of it. And then ask yourself, do I want to sell at the average of that cluster, the 3 to 5 providers? Do I want to try to get myself foot in the door with penetration pricing by saying I'm going to bring my price down 10%, 5% below the average, but I'm going to make it very clear that's only for the first 90 days. That's only for the first year. That's only for the first purchase. And after that is going to go up to what is on par with the market or just beyond the market, because I've created such a demand that I have the right to say, I don't need your business. I'm gonna go where they're willing to pay more, right? And that's all what we're all trying to do. And there's different ways to measure the effectiveness of your niche market strategy. Most folks focus on financial, and that's all they care about. This concept of EBITDA, it's like earnings before income taxes, depreciation, and amortization. In other words, before you pay taxes and before you depreciate buildings and cars, right? It's the money that you've made before that, or your profits. But there's so many other ways to measure whether or not you're serving your customer market well, like customer satisfaction, like repeat business, like keeping your employees. If your employees are turning over every 6 months, you're the problem, probably. It might even be your organization's culture. But most of us don't simply go to business to make money. Some of us want to spend more time with our kids, our spouse. Some of us want to be able to vacation 3 or 4 times a year or work remotely because their employers wouldn't have allowed them to do that when they worked for someone else. So you want to split your time between here and Reno? Or here in, Senegal, I run into the sister that filmed Insecure. We ran into her in Senegal 2 years ago. My wife and I, it was the craziest thing. Issa Rae, she was trying to be low key. She had on shades and everything, and them sisters crowded her like, oh my God, I'm such a fan. But literally, she's been there like 4 or 5 times and have blogged about it since we ran into her there. So you want to split your time between places. Wealth is not just financial. It's whatever you care about. How do you get more of what you care about? That's why you went into business. And it might be to have an impact. So now let's talk about the African American segment specifically. One of my mentors, or I would use the term Jegna as a better term, it's an Ethiopian term, but my Jegna, Dr. Edwin J. Nichols, he published this framework called The Philosophical Aspects of Cultural Difference. And I don't want to get too deep, and I know in about 12 minutes, I think we want to open it up for about 30 minutes of questions, unless Chloe tells me that's too many questions. But he gave us this framework called The Philosophical Aspects of Cultural Difference. And I kind of pulled from that two of the different rungs on that matrix. There's four. He looked at folks or groups that share an ethnic worldview. So when you start talking about people of European descent, white folks, and I unapologetically say those terms, it's not a pejorative, over millennia, over eons of time, people who've come to be known as white in his framework, as he explains it, have developed a certain philosophical worldview. It doesn't matter if you're British, Scottish, Scandinavian, South African, white South African, or or white American, right? What he would say is, this is stable. This is the bedrock. This is the cultural DNA of white culture. Let's just call it that. Let's call it what it is. The highest value, which is one of many philosophical disciplines, they call it axiology, not to get too technical, is where the collective places the highest value. Now, we've all heard the term materialism. That's what we're talking about. This idea that the highest value is in the accumulation of stuff, even to where people's value is reduced to something called their net worth, right? Or when you say, I want to express myself, I am an individual, and I'm going to outcompete you for that sale, to hire that staff person, to get more education, whatever it is, there's always a competition, because that is the collective psychology. And if you say, I have evidence to suggest, they're going to say, what data do you have? Because the epistemology, which is the study of knowledge, or what is knowledge, how you demonstrate knowledge, how you teach knowledge, learning and development, is quantitatively driven because of the desire to count and measure objects, even time. There's a hyper focus on the what in this psychological outlook. And so when you look at how the Western world comes up, these are the first two of the four philosophical disciplines in this column here that Dr. Nichols was dealing with. But now let's look at people who were equatorial people who grew up on the world stage where we were all we had, even when we had our own civilizations. What allows us to survive and thrive in those contexts were our relationships to one another. And so the highest value is there. And subjectivity is the why of what often drives us. So when you start to understand that, you realize you can't keep abusing us in a work relationship or in a business customer relationship and trying to say, well, I pay you well. Because for us, we're more driven by the why. And we tend to be more collaborative and more collectivistic, philosophically speaking, as a collective. And so if you want to be effective as a company serving us or employing us, you need to build a work environment that's this by design collaborative. And you don't pit us against one another and make us compete. Although we've been socialized in a Western context. So you will see manifestations of that. But when you put these understandings together, this is fundamentally what Du Bois in 1903 called double consciousness. It makes us a little schizophrenic, when you put these together and build your strategy around the understanding that we have to hold two contexts, we have to operate within two constructs, right? When you say, what is privilege? To be white and only have to look at the world and show up in the world this way is a privilege. We don't have the privilege of showing up our natural way all the time, unapologetically, without having to still adapt to or adhere. And so we tend to be more qualitative. Look at what degrees we tend to pursue. Talk about the STEM gap, right? Because we don't tend to, in the same rates, go into these fields, right? So when you think about your business, how does knowing how we learn and develop inform your strategies for training and development for your staff, demonstrating your product or service to your customer? I think you're following me. Or even your own sense making. Speaking of sense making, the next philosophical dimension is called logic. It's how a group reasons to get an answer. And so literally just using these two columns, again, you have dichotomous logic. It's either on or off, hot or cold. You got the contract or I got the contract. There's not enough to go around. In fact, there was an entire field built around a scarcity mindset. We call that economics. And politics or political science is the science of who deserves the right to control those scarce resources. And so groups vie for control. We've seen empire, we've seen scandal, right? Whereas folks who have grown up in a context where we've had to make a way out of no way. Even this bottle in my hand is ours if you were with me right now and we were thirsty. It's not that other groups don't do it, but this is our natural proclivity. These are our basic philosophical assumptions from which the more visible and tangible aspects of culture emanate. There we go, emanate. Save that for the bloopers reel. But the point I'm getting at is when you know these things and when you know that this is how psychographically we stratify or how we cluster or how we're different, how do you show up as an organization serving or hiring us or partnering with us? And then what does it mean to exist? Lastly, this is process ontology in philosophy. What does it mean to exist? All things are connected and interrelated versus everything is separate and discrete. Two things can be true at the same time. And so you have the case, for example, in the LGBT community, that everything's on a spectrum. Everything is on a continuum. That comes from that philosophical assumption, right? And so when you recognize that that's how folks are socialized, you can then say, how do we show up for them? I'm going to move over to the examples I have online. And don't mind me, I'm bringing you all into a very scary space, which is my desktop. I'm glad to see I don't have 200 tabs up here right now, but what I'll do for you is I'll consolidate some of them down and bring a couple of them back up. Let's see. We had the website. Why did I do that right now in this moment? Let's see, this was today. That was not today, 2-3. Nope, that's way back. I just set these aside for you all so you can see this. Let's see. Well, I know where I'm going. Let's do that. There we go. So I'm going to keep this up, keep that up, and keep that up. So this was the platform I was telling you about. Bob Rochester, Black-owned business Rochester. When we designed this, we wanted to do it in the Pan-African color spectrum, which is red, black, and green. And for folks who know or don't know, black is for the people, green is for the prosperity or the land, red is for the struggle, the black struggle that regardless of where we are on this planet, we all have it. And so, you can go to this site. It's still up, bobrochester.com. We're rebuilding it later this year, finally, after about 4 years of saying we want to raise the funds to rebuild it. You can see that this is a culturally relevant platform for community-based and economic development. And, without going through the full site, I'm trying to wrap this up in 2 to 3 minutes and then open it up for question. you can see we tried to index businesses by different types, even so much so we have a different view that themes businesses. And the idea was as simple as when we're trying to find our folks, I don't think there's anything here right now yet. You can suggest events. When we're trying to find our folks and support our own, we wanted to be able to put that in one place. And I think a lot of communities have a version of this, right? And it was because we said this was a gap. Now, there's now a Rochester Black owned, that's another dope group that's building their platform. Um, but there's a need for niche resources. When I think about how I've built my business, because one thing I've repeatedly heard in my last 20 years, 21 years of being a business owner, off and on, is that Black and brown businesses struggle to scale. How do we show the ability to compete with larger firms? Well, knowing that and knowing the psychology of my market segment, I said it was important. I don't know why that's doing that. Let's refresh. Murphy's Law says whatever can go wrong will go wrong. And it looks like I'm hung up here. There we go. So I literally show my strategic partners. Oh, it was taking a moment to load. I show my strategic partners. You can go to their websites, you can go to their socials, or you can click on them and stay right in our site and see a little about them, some samples of their work, who they are. Because when I tell you we're a innovative multicultural marketing and management strategy consortium, and we can bounce out to Anthony's, LinkedIn page, the whole idea was prove it, do DEI by design, show us what that looks like. We don't need to create a department or a division and name somebody to that role. That needs to be in the very fabric of how our organization is set up. And we're adding folks to the list. We're adding partners to the list. When we work with subs, you only see 3, well, this needs to come down. You only see a few of our employees. We're up to 8, but you see our associates in here as well. Oh, I'm on my development site. That's what happened. Let's go back to, there we go. Everything's a work in progress. There we go. So you still only see 3 of our staff members and more of our subcontractors. But I wanted you to see this is what it looks like when you do it. Now, another thing is, if you go to our LinkedIn page, for those of you who've begun following us, you'll see that we just recently had a big announcement connected to the International Economic Development Council and the U.S. Economic Development Administration, where we're now in this pilot program, which is kind of like AmeriCorps, but for economic recovery. We're a host site for this brother here to assist us with ecosystem building. But to bring this up, we've started a cultural calendar this year. I hired back in December a marketing and design manager and a full-time graphic designer. First time in 20 years I've ever had those staff members in-house, not as contractors, and it's not me doing it all. And so I said from January 1st to December 31st, I want to highlight every significant occasion, every holiday, every cultural observance that is relevant to the communities that I work in and serve. We have a Chinese New Year post coming out this weekend, for example, for that purpose. And so we're calling it the From All of Us at Third Eye Network campaign, but this is our cultural community calendar. So we recognize Phi Beta Sigma, or as I like to say, my favorite boys in blue, because we don't rock with the popo, but that's another conversation. Just to bring some levity to the situation. We recognized Jack and Jill of America. Some of you may be like, well, who is that? Well, this is a very important organization from the 1930s in the Black elite community. We recognized, those are job postings, Delta Sigma Theta on their Founders Day. And it's not just about fraternities and sororities, I promise you that, because we hosted a business meeting for the Greater Rochester Black Business Alliance, and look at the motif there. We announced our staff when they started with us in our own brand colors. You can see the AKAs, yes. The Zetas. But then for MLK Day, we also had a culturally specific and targeted post. When you know these things, how do you lean into it? to raise awareness, to say, I see you, to create new product and service bundles, to price your products. You can say for Freedom's Eve watch night services, we're going to be cutting kids' hair all day for free, right? But I wanted you to see that we did this for Three Kings Day. May the light that guided the Magi bring you divine gifts. Always culturally appropriate, always tasteful, always in deference. And we bounce these off of folks from the culture. Haitian Independence Day. Happy New Year, right? We do these things as a way to pay homage, as a way to stay out front, as a way to model the very diversity, equity, and inclusion that everybody strives for but struggles to realize. With that, I'll stop and open it up for questions. Hopefully this was useful. And Chloe, how long can we rock out with questions?
I think we're usually slated until 11:30. We usually do end at 11. So we just ask that, for those that can stay, stay. And those that have to go, we totally understand.
Fantastic. Yeah, my calendar invite said 10 to 11:30. So that's why I was like, I can go for an hour and open it up for 30 minutes. But please, questions, come off mute. You'll often hear me say I'm African, so I'm calling response. I want to hear you, but I do appreciate the chat.
I wanted to start with the chat. Wendy Dunham, she says, I respect it is Black History Month, but this Zoom meeting was not promoted as that. I thought it was about business for all. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I was reading something else. I know that she said she wanted to focus on different things. So this wasn't what she was expecting. And, sometimes regardless of, this is not just for Black people. So regardless of what your race is, most people are promoting to different cultures, which Dr. Lomax did say. And it's good to know how to promote to those different cultures. But if this is not the niche that you're going to, then we totally understand. I had a question though, thinking about something. I'm sorry.
I want to lead into that because I want to lean into that because I mentioned I'm unapologetic about mine. This is Black History Month. You asked me to come and talk about a topic, and I said we can do niche marketing. I want to be clear to everybody. Your niche, I've already said like 15 times, whether you're marketing to LGBTQ, whether you're marketing to Asian, whether you're marketing to Jeep drivers, right? Whether you're marketing to seniors, whether you're doing women, I actually explained all those things. And then I showed you the Three Kings Day post. So I just want to make sure it's helpful for everybody to realize that niche marketing is not specific to one particular race, gender, class, ideology, but to demonstrate it, you need to see it in action.
Yes.
Now, Chloe, come on in.
I had a question about niche marketing. Sometimes people miss it. And so there's a meme that has been going on the last 72 hours about a very popular candle and body scent business. And they are promoting the watermelon lemonade candles under the Black History Month display. And so, sometimes they miss it. And so, because if you're not, I know you mentioned that, you need to have an affiliation with the culture. And sometimes they don't have it. And sometimes the people that are promoting it may not have an affiliation or be connected. So they're trying, but they're missing it. What do you suggest when people do that?
Sure. First off, some people play diversity. Some people are diverse, but it's about the relationship. Again, I mentioned this earlier, you do not have to be Asian to serve the Asian community. Just like I took one of my employees who was in town the last few days to Han Noodle Bar. She's a white woman from Kansas City, Missouri. I'm a Black man from Rochester. She grew up in the country. I grew up in the city. We went to Han Noodle Bar. She had a dish that was like one of their specials for Chinese New Year, and she had that full experience. It was authentic for her to have that experience. It reminded her of something her grandmother made. My point is, organizations that have a relationship with the community, that talk to folks from the community that says, before I release this marketing content, before I start marketing this product or service this way, or even before I start offering it, I want to make sure that this is something that I'm doing respectfully. I want to get some guidance on how to price it. I want to know, am I the right messenger for the message? Or do I need to have a cultural ambassador from the community deliver that message? Because even with all of the right intentions, the relationship and the respect, how you perceive me is always going to be more important than how I project myself or how I'd like you to see me. Because I could say I'm showing up one way and you say I don't believe it. So yeah, we've seen Walmart or Target put out Juneteenth ice cream. That was an epic fail, right? We've seen clothing stores try to market to the LGBT community with certain kind of clothing, and it was an epic fail. But it goes back to the lack of a relationship and brand ambassadors from the community that the community can receive.
Thank you. So we have a question, Vernique. How can I rebrand and refocus my lock salon in regards to niche marketing?
Absolutely. So, hi, Vernique. It's good to see you on here. I think she was my student when I taught at MCC. Good friend, though. By virtue of locks, natural hair, right? You're already serving a niche population because there's the market of people who get their hair done or hair did, if we're talking urban culture. And then there's those that have specific hairstyle types. The question is, what are the needs of the natural hair care market? In fact, did you know that there was a natural hair care market? How big is it? What products? What brands? What conferences do they have? Where do those folks hang out? What kinds of events do they go to? What types of diet do that population tend to enjoy? And it's, again, the natural hair care market is not a monolithic group because you have professionals with natural hair. You have, blue collar workers with natural hair. And then you have those that are natural for religious purposes. When I think about Bob Marley and Rastafari, right? And so which facet of that market are you trying to appeal to? And what kind of experience do you want them to have? I think about the sister that has the groom room. I can't think of that sister's name right now. But that sister said, I'm going to create an entire space that you can come and get a haircut and shave, and you're in a booth with just the person taking care of you, and you can watch TV and tune out everyone on the sides of you because they don't see you, right? And give them that end-to-end experience. So is it very important for them to have, your customers to have a super premium experience? Or are you going to compete on speed and say, well, I can get you in and get you out on lunch? You know what I'm saying? For the professional market, retwist, palm twist and get you in and out if you show up on time. So the question becomes, what are their needs and what's the best way to wrap your services and position your salon around their needs? You should talk to your customer. All of you should be talking to your customer.
So we have Dr. William Bear. He says, I am a micro business white person, and I have noticed at health fairs, African Americans tend to overwhelmingly be the ones who buy my product, which is an electronic teddy bear that helps people remember their medications. How can I focus my marketing to the African American community?
That is a beautiful question. And this is a great example of what we were talking about. You don't have to be Black to sell to Black people. Just make sure that the relationship is reciprocal. It's not extractive and you're just taking and not putting back into. I would say, if you had a budget for this, some of the things that you could do is focus group. Invite 3 to 6 businesses Black people to lunch. Let them, handle your product. Talk to them about what their experience is like, why they buy it. You could also explore incentive programs. Existing customers that buy your product, your bear, that helps people remember to take their pills. You could say, here's an incentive. You get 5% of everyone you help me sell, and let them be your brand ambassadors. Another thing, what are the events and occasions that are important to folks who take this medication? You may say, well, you know what? The next time Alpha Phi Alpha has their Black and Gold Scholarship Gala, I want to become one of their paid vendors. And you pay I don't know what the price that our chapter charges anymore, $50 to $100, to be able to set up a booth at the event in the lobby outside of this gala where everyone's suited and booted in a nice gown or tuxedo. But you have
Alpha Phi Alpha?
Alpha, there's a whole bunch. Look up the Divine Nine fraternities and sororities. You're welcome. But,
Thank you.
there's all kinds of events and occasions, right? Over at the International Plaza in Rochester, which is on Clinton Avenue, from about April to about November, I think the cost to do a tent is about $15 a month or $15 a week. And you have a very captive cultural audience. But we're talking about taking medication. So what's your relationship to the hospitals? What's your relationship to health practitioners and professionals, therapists, right? Because they can become your ambassadors to help get your product in front of the people that they're serving, who we know take medication. So
Yeah.
you're limited by your creativity.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
No problem, Doctor. Dr. Bear. Come on in, Candace, and then I see something from, is that queen's name Latifia? Latifia?
Latifia.
Hey,
Latifia. So you're next after Candace. Come on in, Candace.
how you doing? I'm busy cooking lunch or whatnot, but
There you go.
thank you for being here, Doctor, and thank you, Chloe, for inviting me. Um, I didn't really have a question, but it was to piggyback off what you said to the person that was before me. Um, yeah, when I go like to hospital gift shops, they be having all type of stuff in there. So I would reach out to, them too, the hospital gift shops. Um,
Brilliant feedback.
yeah, and that's all. But thank you. I don't really have no questions. Well, yes, I do. So I have
Come
a
on.
drop shipping business. I market my artwork on apparel and different accessories, meaning cups or shirts, anything that I choose to put it on. And I'm trying to figure out, because I just rebranded. I just rebranded my website. I dropped my website in the chat too. But this is my second year, and I'm trying to figure out what am I supposed to be doing as far as the niche, finding the niche for the designs and things that I'm putting on the clothing. You know what I mean? Like I read something where I'm supposed to check out Google Trends or something like that, but that's
Sure,
it.
sure. I wanna lean into the comment you made to Dr. Bear and address your question here. Um, you heard me say it earlier, Dr. Bear, that strategy is about choices. So you may not choose to go the community grassroots engagement route and may say, you know what, hospitals and gift shops and colleges and medical centers or whatever, I'm going to wholesale my product to them across the country or across the Northeast. And I'm going to build that model where I get my margin from wholesaling and let them deal with distributing it. And once that really takes off, you've seen Shark Tank. I'm going to do the direct to market or direct to consumer model with an e-commerce platform where there's different kinds of bears and people can build a bear. That's copywritten, by the way, and then be able to buy right from your site. To the sister here, Candace, the question is the things that you're trying to put images on. It's very important to understand, where do people go currently to buy those things? What types of stores, whether they're craft shops and boutiques, whether it's online directly to market through Amazon or whatever. And you want to make sure you're where those other organizations are, or you want to make sure some of your products are in their place. The other thing is, if you want to differentiate yourself, talk to people who buy. What do you want to see on these things? Allow them to, I think about the brother Matthew Wagstaff, who has the company called Positive Prints. You can go to his website and upload the designs for a shirt and do your order right there from his site. And then he build the order. So you just have to figure out what's the best approach for your business.
Yeah, that's the plan. I have like last year I kind of slacked off on the website. I mean, I paid for it; it was up, but I didn't do much marketing and stuff. But since January 1st, I've been going like nonstop. I've been going hard on my website like every day. I even built me an office space in the living room so I can go to work. You know what I mean? So
Gotcha.
I did just come up with a 365. When you were speaking about it, I was like, oh, it sounds like you might be interested in my products. I came up with a 365 collection on my website for Black History Year because I don't do month. It's every day. So that's what my market is for that stuff. But yep. But
Nice.
I think it's going good. Thank you. I've had one sale so far this week, so I'm excited about it.
Awesome. Well, congratulations and thank you for
Thank
showing
you.
up. This sister here is an example of working not just on your business, but working on yourself because we all forget to
Thank
eat.
you.
We all forget to eat
Oh,
a lot of times. I see the brother
that,
on the phone in his truck trying to get our attention. Let's bring him in.
okay. Thank you. Thank you, Dr.
And I
Lomax.
think
Campbell.
no problem. And right before you, we had to Latifia. So let's get Latifia and then come over to you.
Okay, so I have put a question in the chat. I am a caterer, and when you're dealing with food, it's like hard to scale down who you
Mhm.
market to. Um, I'm not big with social media. I'm trying to get better with it, but I do have younger children, which I was focusing on them. So I feel like out of the social media loop on how to upload, when to upload, and things of that nature. But I don't feel like my clientele, they are on social media a little bit, but they're more of older than me, more professional. I'm 34. So people in my generation, they want something quick, they don't want really anything worth substance, or they don't want to pay for it. But I don't have a problem with like my older clientele or my professional people, but it's how do I market to them?
To your older clientele or the folks that are impatient and don't want to pay for higher quality?
I don't feel like I want to even market to them because that's a lot, especially when you're dealing with food.
Mm-hmm.
So
So
like like my younger friends be like, "Oh, you need to post, you need to post," and I'm like, "Oh no, I don't really want." But I know that we are living in the world of social media.
I would say social media
Oh,
is one outlet,
mm,
it's one tool. It's not the only one. And the beautiful thing about being a business owner who serves customers is that that's a relationship. You choose who you want to be in relationship with. Once upon a time, I had customers that were frustrating the hell out of me when I was younger. I was probably like 24, 23. And at the time, Third Eye Network was Third Eye Photography. And I remember my printer who produced my film said, get better customers. And so what I ended up doing literally is I raised my price. I ended up um, creating a screening mechanism to qualify customers. Like you're not qualified if, right? And that transformed my business because the market is big enough that I can serve this group and not care about other groups, right? So you have to figure out that older population, is going to eventually transition, right? And the younger generation is going to become the future older population. But the question is, how do you stay focused on those who are willing to pay? And that's something we didn't get into. Um, there's three concepts. The first one is willingness to pay, the ability to pay, and actual need for your good or service or resource or offering. I may have a need for what you're selling, but I don't have the willingness to pay or the ability to pay. I may have the ability to pay and the need, but I don't want to pay for it. And so you have to know both where those three things line up, the need, the willingness, and the ability to pay. And you also need to make sure that there's a fit between what you're offering and what, the way they like to receive it, right? That product market fit. And so if folks aren't patient for what you have to offer, you lack fit currently. And the way you could adjust that is how do I get this started earlier? Because I know my sales cycle, I know what people typically want. So how do I pre-prep certain things and still preserve it to maintain the quality so that when they call on it, it takes a fraction of the time to offer it? We saw that with KFC when they first started. They invented the pressure cooker so they can cook high quality chicken in a shorter period of time, fast food format. So you may need to innovate how you go about meeting the needs of this elusive niche right now. Where's the brother that was in the vehicle? Let's bring him in and then we'll open it up for one or two more from anyone else. Oh, there he is. He got out the truck. Come on in, brother. He's on his phone.
How you doing?
I'm
Yeah,
well.
I'm going in the job. I just had a couple questions. The first one was it might not be related. On your website, I tried to put my business on there, but when I clicked the link to add my business, it was saying that the website wasn't correct, or it was taking me to an error code. Is that something that you heard about with the site on Facebook, the Black owned businesses?
On Facebook, or did you go to Bob Rochester?
Actually, I found this on Facebook.
No, it wouldn't be a Facebook intake. You want to go to bobrochester.com and click
Gotcha.
yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah, I think you might have landed on somebody else's something else.
Oh, okay.
Got to be more
Um,
careful.
yeah, you're right. You're right. And then my other question was gonna be, I've been trying to do more for, I don't know, Black folks, as far as home renovation and stuff like that. I'm trying to figure out how to get more in touch with the people that I know need a lot of my services. But it seems like either one, uh, it's hard to find people that are about their business. You know, it's a lot of running around and talking. And then maybe I just don't know how to get in touch with the right people of my color. What do you think on that?
So what's the actual question? I just want to make sure I'm following your question.
I'm sorry. I have a home renovation business. I'm trying to figure out how
Got it.
do I get in.
You're trying to figure out how
Oh, I'm
you
sorry.
get more work. You're trying to figure out how you get more work doing home renovations.
For our people. Like
Got it.
most of my people are, most of my clients are predominantly white or Asian, things like that. It seems like I can't get in touch with our ethnicity for some reason, and I don't know. I think some of it is because I don't know, stereotypical. The other people look more professional, or they feel like they're gonna get their money's worth. I don't know.
Yeah, those are all factors. Remember, I talked in phase one, there's social, cultural, legal, political, technical, environmental factors. That's a factor.
Mhm.
Stereotypes or perceptions of a Black business owner. I mean, that's a social cultural factor. Right, wrong, or indifferent. So you gotta overcome that. So the Black homeowner is a niche segment of the homeowner segment, the homeowner market. And so the question becomes, how many Black homeowners are there and how do they break out, right? How many Black homeowners are there and how do they split out? Because when I think about affluent and middle class Black people in our community, a lot of them live in the suburbs. A lot of them live in the 19th Ward. Some of them live in the Park Avenue area, like on Berkeley, that area. Some of us
Mhm.
live in Cornhill, like specific places. I'm trying to give you territories. So
Yeah.
you may get to know us by attending the let's say the 19th Ward Neighborhood Association meeting because we may be
Yeah.
active there.
Okay.
You may get involved with the Greater Rochester Black Business Alliance and become a member as a Black-owned business and say, hey, how many of you are homeowners? You may
Gotcha.
request to be a guest speaker to, one of the AKA's community events. I'm making this up, but these are ways you get in
Yeah.
front
I
of the
understand.
population that might be a homeowner and not a renter
Gotcha.
and would have the means. You could also get in touch with Youth Build. You can also talk to the folks over at Action for a Better Community because they have programs that support homeowners, Black homeowners, brown homeowners trying to renovate their home. So you could ask, how do I
Gotcha.
become part of that program?
Okay.
Just to get you
All right. I
going.
appreciate it.
Any other questions? I think we have time for one more.
All right. Have a good day. I appreciate it.
Take care, brother.
I had a oh my God. I had a I had a statement, if you don't mind.
You got 1 minute. Come on
Okay,
with it.
it's for Latifa. So Latifa, I'm a chef as well. I cooked in the military for 8 years, but I went to a wedding expo and there were multiple people there. I just went to look because I majored in hospitality, but it is a lot of people at the wedding expo. You got caterers there, anything that people need. You got event planners. So I was looking into like finding a wedding expo to go to and set up and maybe had like a sample of some of your food, like maybe a dessert. Because I was eating the sample at the wedding expo. So
Oh, yeah,
expos is,
I've seen a few of those. Thank you. I've seen it, but I didn't know. I thought it was just for like dresses and like stuff like that. But I have seen a few of those.
oh girl, no, they be looking for you. They need caterers. Everybody in they need people to make their meals. You know what I mean?
Oh, yes,
It's
ma'am.
plenty. Yeah, I mean I'm in DC, but I need to drop my phone number and all that to you. But
Please.
yeah, but yeah, I'm excited. I'm a chef too. I just don't do it right now, but I got you.
I'm
Thank
gonna
you.
pull Laura. I'm gonna pull Laura in and say this to Chloe and Melissa. It may be important to invite this group back just for a networking session because there's a lot of wealth. There's a wealth of knowledge among the group that was here today, and they can just rock out sharing experiences and information to support each other's business. That might be a good new program to build out. Laura, come on in.
Hi, Lomax. So nice to see you. I think this talk is very beneficial, and thank you for having me today. I'll make my question quick. I'm a playwright and producer.
Awesome.
I do theater. Yeah, I stage my plays. Okay, my and I'd like to continue to build an audience because once you get, it's expensive to stage a production. You have theater space, which is really expensive. And I like to try, only on my last event was the last time I was able to pay my actors. Well, at any rate, it is an investment to stage a production, but I want to have the audience there. The only thing is, um, when I'm about to have a production, I'll go to my, send notices out to all my friends and all my relatives and have them come. But when you have a situation like this where my productions might be every 4 months, okay,
Okay.
how do I get and attract and keep people when I don't have my business is not like the contractor gentleman. I wish I could get his information by the way, because I do need a reliable contractor. That's just
See
an
there.
aside. But
See there.
yeah, I don't know. I would like to find a very reliable person. And so that's another thing. So that's why I'm saying this talk is very beneficial. But in a situation like myself where you have a product or service, but
Mhm.
it's presented every couple months, what's the best way to go about that? And
This
another
is,
thing, I just run my business. I'm trying.
go ahead. Go ahead, Laura. You were just about to say something else. I was going to answer you, but I didn't realize you weren't done. You're muted or you've disappeared a little bit. All right, I'm gonna give her about 10 more seconds and then I'm gonna answer this and then turn it over to Chloe to wrap up here.
Hello.
There you go. So go ahead and finish the rest of your question because I was gonna answer it.
Hello, Lomax.
Yes, we can hear you. Okay. So Chloe, for the sake of the recording, I'm just gonna answer it for this sister here and then let you close us out.
Hello. No, I'm not.
Um, so the answer is this, right? She's in the kind of business that it's very important to build a community around her business because as a playwright, she's producing on a quarterly basis. She may run it for a weekend or multiple times within a span of time before, working on the next one. And so having a website that allows folks to opt in to her email distribution list or being able to capture all of her sales up front, just like Jiva Theater does, you can buy a season pass or a year pass, and then you can come to all of her productions. That allows her to capture her revenue up front and then budget it throughout the year. But also having that distribution list or closed social media groups and things like that allows her to engage with her customers in between and outside of productions. And then she may need to build new products and services or resources around the productions so that she's not a one-trick pony, right? And so I would offer that to any of you who have more periodic offerings where you literally build a portfolio or catalog of offerings so that there's always some value to add to your customer. Thank you all for your time. Hopefully this has been helpful. And yeah, there's never going to be one world, one people on the same page. We're always going to have
Thank
difference.
you. Thank you.
So come on in,
Thank you
Chloe.
so much for coming out, and I took a lot of notes. I hope you guys did too. This is going to be on the replay on YouTube, and if you're interested in business advisement, you can contact us at sbdcbrockport.org and sign up for business advisement. And also, the Business Insight Center is a part of the downtown library, and they can help you do any type of research, demographic research, and things like that. So we're definitely a vital resource to entrepreneurs. Thank you so much, Dr. Lomas. I really appreciate it.
No problem. And Laura, you can catch the replay to hear the response I gave to your question. You all be well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, that concludes February's first Wednesday. I'd like to thank Chloe Anderson and Dr. Lomax Campbell for speaking with us today. Just a reminder, this recording will be posted on YouTube on the Rochester Central Library website. Well, the YouTube channel. We'll also email all registered participants with a copy of the presentation slides.
Have a good week.
Thank you very much.